welcome to another episode of Shameless Stories. And this is our space to talk about stories that held us back, that made us feel shame, but also the journey that it's taken to move through that shame. So I am joined today by the magical Emma Wright, who I'm going to let you introduce yourself, because I mean, we spoke last week, but these guys haven't heard. So Emma, tell me what you do, because it's changed and evolved, hasn't it?
Shamelessly, I was a ex-trader. I used to be a stock market trader, a derivatives trader in London, and then a chartered financial planner, where I felt like I was literally selling my soul to the wealth industry, selling investment products that people didn't always need, and I had my little boy, Harry, 6 years ago, and baby Rose came 4 years ago in 2021. And I think when you have babies, you realize that you cannot carry on in the way that you were for the last 20 years. And that journey was amazing, the things that I'd learned, but I really realized that I had to do something completely different. And so I took a really big, brave step of starting my own business in 2021. I launched my coaching business and stepped into the power of coaching. And in that time, I'm now kind of pivoting again, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today, as I've had a really big year of awakening. But yeah, I'm a wealth empowerment coach, now also a wealth empowerment coach and therapist. And I'm on this big mission to really redefine what wealth is, because of my journey in wealth, to help people to step into their own wealth sovereignty, wealth empowerment, to be their own wealth manager, which sounds really massive, but it's really not. It's so simple. And to give the tools to people to do everything that they want in their life, in their business, and to get in alignment with what they came here to experience on this beautiful journey of life, in a nutshell.
I love that. And it's so interesting because interestingly, I was a guest on your podcast last week when we were recording. And I think we both talked about our wealth, inverted commas, stories around what wealth and abundance means to us. And I know in my own personal experience that my shame story is linked to money. It's linked to the cold hard cash, the fact that we're supposed to earn money, and that then equates to our value in life. And you coming on here is me owning my shame story around money, but also you coach people on kind of falling in love with that aspect of themselves. I think a lot of people are scared of money. I think there's so much we can unpick around that. So I
think that's the thing, Sarah, what you've just said there, it gave me literally goosebumps in my boobies. All the way through me, I felt goosebumps, because we all have a money story. Even people with money and wealth, or perceived wealth, have a story where maybe they're carrying some sort of guilt and shame, whether it's, and I always think it can fall into two buckets, where you have the money, but you have all this pressure, and you have all of this toxic, masculinity of doing to create the money. So therefore you're not living this life that you love, and therefore you feel resentment because you want to be over here. So then you flip over here, or maybe you're over here, and you're doing amazing things for the world. You're creating amazing solutions and innovations. Maybe you're coaching, maybe you're a healer, maybe you're a Reiki master, maybe you're doing these incredible things over here, but you're not charging we call it charging your worth. You're worth infinitely. You're not money ever, but you're not charging because you're afraid of money. You have different, what I call wealth wounds, and we all carry these wealth wounds from a really young age. And it's about lifting the lid and saying, by the way, it's not your fault.
Thank you for that, because both you described me. I've been both of those things.
And we usually, a lot of us have, and we flip and we seesaw between it. We go after the money, we neglect our well-being, and then we seesaw and I go, freak, shove off money. I don't need the money. I'm now coming back into my health and well-being. And it's about balance and equilibrium and realizing that you can have both, because it's not the money that's the problem. And it never is.
No, never is. And that's the thing. I think there is massive shame around that, and you see it out in the big wide world. You know, you see these coaches talking about their money and talking about their six-figure salaries, and it used to frustrate me because I'd see all this, I have earned six figures and this is how you can do it too, and it's like, but they forget to, like, they omit the journey that they took to get there. They omit the fact that they're paying a team of 10 people. They omit the pressure that goes alongside holding that space, because effectively you are, if you're running a business of that magnitude, it kind of, the buck stops with you because it's your business. And I think that there's so many business owners out there who maybe have had that experience, have maybe chose, you're almost creating corporate again. I think a lot of us go, we leave corporate and then we go, oh, I felt really safe in that programming, so I'm going to go and create it all over again. And then you still feel that pain.
100%, and that's because you're in the same cycles. You're still embodying your corporate mentality, and the corporate mentality is fear-based. It's fear-led. We're in the mind and ego of needing money, and we then follow someone else's framework. And a lot of it is smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
A lot of it isn't what we see on Instagram or what we're sold, and it's because you're being sold a story. And you know, this is interesting because we're talking about shameless stories, but a lot of it is to sell to you, to get you to do something, because you're put in a place of lack, to think that you need something based on somebody else's success. You haven't seen their real journey. You aren't seeing what's really behind the scenes. And I think that's the biggest thing, because I've seen a lot of things. I've coached a lot of business owners. I've worked with a lot of business owners. You know, I've coached for people in these industries. I've been invited into these high-end masterminds as an expert. I've been to retreats where I've been invited as the experts. So I've seen it all. And I've seen all of the stuff in the wealth industry as well, when I was a chartered financial planner and as a trader. And it gives you a beautiful insight into, you know, the fact that if you want to design a life that you love and you've got out of corporate, you really need to start to do the real work of firstly saying, I don't need to do all of that stuff. I need to come inward. I need to look at what it is that I want to create from a place of heart, soul, and abundance and love, and start doing it your way and being empowered to say, I don't actually need to do your thing. I can do my thing my way and stay in my lane. And it's a big thing, because you're retraining your mind to come out of that fear-based place and to step into trusting you.
Yes.
We're not conditioned to trust ourselves at all.
No, we really aren't. And I think that's what's really interesting. It's so powerful, actually. I watched a film at the weekend called Wild Robot. It's a brilliant kids film. And it's all about a robot that breaks out of its conditioning. And it just felt really kind of, it was such a beautiful little story as well. I'm not going to go on about film, but maybe your kids will like it. But anyway,
I like it. I think these films are perfect for children to see, because people are creating films, and I don't think these things are created. They're created by people that want to get a message into young people. To, you know, like The Matrix was not a joke. That red pill, that when you go for an awakening, you wish you could not take the red pill and go back to sleep and plug back into the Matrix, because it would be a lot easier just to go back into that, right? When you decide to change and unplug and become wild.
Well, that then leads us really neatly on to what's happened to you this year. And the reason why I wanted to kind of bring you on and talk about your shameless story, because you've done that. You took the red pill, you plugged back into the matrix, and I'm guessing you had an epic kind of moment where you woke up and It was almost like a double dose in like light speed from what you've said to me.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so I left in 2021. I started my own businesses, but I massively plugged back into how I was doing it before. You know, I was doing all of these high-end masterminds. I was spending a fortune half the time, earning money to pay to somebody else because I was never feeling good enough. I've never really felt good enough my whole life, due to the fact that, you know, from a really, really young age, I had wealth wounds due to the fear of abandonment, due to parents splitting up at the age of 7, right? And these are the things that start to form your beliefs from a really, really young age. And at the start of this year, the universe decided enough was enough. And there's no way, I didn't actually take a red pill. Nobody offered me a red pill. I was just literally activated into realizing that everything that I was doing was not in alignment with the real picture. There were sprinklings of it, like the way that I was wealth coaching, the 8-step framework that I created, the star code, all of that was fully in alignment. But it was like, you need more. I needed to leave my marriage because I was really unhappy. I was drinking every day over the last 4 years. I'd start drinking at 5 o'clock as a celebration. I'd survive the day. I'd go to bed with my kids at, you know, at 8 o'clock when they did, so I didn't have to face the reality of being really unhappy in my marriage. Nobody's fault, right? Yeah, nobody's fault. But, you know, I was really unhappy and I was, you know, throwing myself, as we always do, to avoid this, into my work and into creating money. If I just make money, I will ... be enough, be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And this is my shameless story, because everything I talk about is being authentic and living yourself. And there I was, not doing that. So in February of this year, I was activated. It was like, no more. Okay. And I had a spiritual awakening. I went through huge amounts of dark night of the soul where it was literally, I was learning to live again. I was learning to be me again, and everything had to crumble. I had to leave. I had to get a rental. So I'd left my marital home. I'm in a rental at the minute in the heart of Braunton, because my heart and soul, I wasn't living authentically in the place in the world that I wanted to be at, which was by the beach. I was really drawn to Saunton Sands. And I was doing little things of following my intuition. And I had to uproot myself and get a rental. I had to get into debt to get out of my situation, because everything was in my marital situation. Oh my goodness, a wealth coach in debt, right? I had to liquidate certain assets to move away. I had to take a big step back because I was living in my car. I was living in my car, my little Fiat 500. I've always owned my own cars, and somehow I ended up with a car that was worth £1,000 that's on my driveway. And I was living in my car whilst I got my rental, and I was functioning. And I gave up booze last year. I changed my life. I started to transform everything about myself without realizing it. So I would have the strength to leave in February, March time when I walked out. I got my rental in May. And then it's been, this whole year has been about getting back onto my feet almost. And no one would have known it,
Yeah.
because you're like a duck to water. You carry on. Everyone, you carry on doing your podcast, you carry on doing your, you know, you carry on. But behind the scenes, this year has been the hardest year of my life. And I sometimes sit here going, where's the red button? I want to plug back into the matrix. I want to go back. I want to go back. This is hard. There's some days where I'm like, what am I doing? Because I'm now completely relaunching the way that I do business. I'm saying no to that corporate functioning, and I'm redefining how I bring wealth and therapy. I'm launching a therapy practice. I'm launching a hands-on Reiki massage business. I'm training to be a healer as well as a wealth coach. And this is what my soul came here to do and experience. And I am pooping my pants, not going to lie, because it's massive. But sometimes you make little changes, where you think, okay, I'm going to leave corporate and I'm going to start my business, but you do everything you did the same in corporate. You don't shed anything, you carry on.
Mm.
And what you should really be doing is something radical, but you can't because you're stuck, you fear. And I have massively, literally shaved the whole layer off, and I'm back to the little core. I feel like an inner child that is learning to walk again. And that is what for me is an awakening. When you kind of go through an awakening, you only really understand what someone's babbling on about when you've been through it. But when you know someone who has gone through it, I find it's really nice to share these stories, because you realize that you can talk to somebody about it. And I think that's one of the reasons why we connected, right? And I feel like,
Yeah.
being able to talk so openly about that story and that journey is, yeah, appreciate you holding this space for me.
Oh, absolutely. And like, I think we talked about this on your podcast, is there's such mirrors around us. There's so many moments in time that you've described that have happened to you, that have happened to me, that have happened to clients that I work with. And I think, there's so many of us that are resonating on that deep level where the conditioning doesn't work anymore. And the thing that personally I've found is, and I still find this now, I'm always going to be forever a student of life. There is no way I'm getting a certificate at the end of this year because I passed level 7 of my awakening. It's kind of, I think that's another thing. It's like, it's an understanding that this is always happening. It's always a work in progress. And when you go through that very early stage of the dark night of the soul, and you wake up to the reality that is not hampered by booze or Netflix box sets or anything else that we're using to numb that feeling, that it comes out whether you want it or not. And
Yeah.
you've got kids too, right? And I mean, I'm envious of my single friends who don't have children, who can spend a week processing what happened to them.
Oh, I had this conversation recently. I'm going to put it out there. I had this conversation with a person where I decided that I needed to take the power back and pause something that I was doing because of my situation, because of my children and my marital situation and navigating a divorce. And this person said to me, who was single in a completely different situation, oh, everyone goes through things like this. You just got to get over it. And I was like, okay, intuitively, this is why I was bringing the power back. I think intuitively, I knew that I no longer resonated with this person anymore, because when you are responsible for 2 human beings, and I don't have the support of family. My family, I love my family dearly. I love my mum and dad, but they cannot financially support me. I've left my support bubble that was not really real, of my husband and his family, that was keeping me stuck. And I am alone.
Yeah.
Never alone,
Yeah.
but I'm alone and fully stepping into trust of my sovereign power, of me, and that I can 100% do this in my own power, in my own sovereignty, and that, yeah, I can't go to Bali. So, I keep having this conversation with one of my beautiful friends down at Saunton, who is, I call her out, Natasha King. She's amazing. She's my yogi friend, and we connected over the years. That she's yin yoga breath work. And she's told me that I need to go to Bali to learn yogi from her yogi master in Bali and do this 200-hour intensive yoga course. And that is what I want to do. But it's
Yes.
not what I can do right
Yes.
now, because I have 2
Understand.
children that are 3 and 6, and I need to firmly get back onto my feet. I'm actually in a numerology year 4. And so numerology wise is my down to earth year. And oh my goodness, have they shoved my face in the dirt? I'm in the dirt. I'm covered in mud. It's fully all over me. And guess what? You're in the dirt covered in mud. The only way is up, right? And you can see that. And
Yeah.
it kind of feels a little bit warm, and you're like, I want to stay down here because, I want to start sprouting and start going up again, because that can feel a bit scary. But, you
Mm.
have to do what you've got to do to kind of navigate challenging times of change and
Yeah.
be fearless. Face your fears, because one of the biggest things, I know I'm going off on one now, but one of the
No.
biggest things is that when we see a fear, and the mind is here to see a fear, it sees the threat and it goes into fight, flight, and freeze. Fight, flight, freeze, play dead. Right? We play dead a lot in situations where we're deeply unhappy. That's where you're numbing, that's where you're playing dead. You fight,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you have toxic arguments and things are not good in your life, or you run away. Those are the options, right? And I think there's a fourth one, like a fawning, right? But fundamentally, that's the mind's approach to fear. And that's why you keep in your uncomfortable comfortable. When you are rewilding, I love the word rewilding, like wild robot, you're unconditioning yourself. You are facing your fears for the first time. And that's when you complete those traumas, because the traumas that the fight, flight, and freeze, you're locking all of those traumas in your body, and
Yeah.
you're releasing those traumas. You're raising your vibration. You don't realize you're doing it, even though every step is quite painful in the early stages of an awakening, of rewilding, of making that change. It's never done,
Yeah.
like you say. You're constantly going to be up leveling, right? As you go through this beautiful journey of life, as you constantly evolve and step up into a new place that feels harder again and is a new level. But every time you do, you release and complete a world trauma. Every time you do, you feel even more vibrant, and you have
Yes.
more knowledge to navigate it, and you become even more fearless. And it's like
Yeah.
that evolution.
100%. And I like you're talking about the mama bear energy there. And, that was part of my awakening. It was about it wasn't giving birth to the children that did it for me. It was probably a couple of years after I was numbing the postnatal depression that came with it. I went down the traditional route of going to the doctor and having the conversation and having the tablets and a bit of therapy, but not much therapy. And it was actually energy work that made me realize that there was just so much more joy associated with being a parent. And whilst, I don't know, when I wrote Wake Up Mother, I was feeling the pressure because of the pandemic and, two very small children and trying to run my business. But I liken my business as a bit of a child as well, because it has its own entity, it has its own energy, it has its own it wants to show up in different ways. It's maturing now. It's like 7-8 years old now, my business, and it's now wanting a mobile phone and to do selfies.
I love that so much.
It's so it went through a bit of a phase in its it was I did exactly what you shared. Like I did about 5 years ago, I got to a point where I was like, I've just recreated the prison I've just come out of.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I went through a very similar, this year was another kind of awakening moment. And it was to do with, again, my ancestral lineage. So I had the awakening moment with my girls and becoming a mother and understanding what that was all about. And then this year, my mum had a very life-threatening stroke, and it's kind of shaken me up at the other end of the scale. So it's really interesting that I'm in this. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that complain that they're sat in this space that I'm in because they're having to look after their kids and having to look after their parents. And I'm actually choosing to do that. And I have to keep coming back to it and going, I'm choosing to be flexible in my business so I can be there for these people because, they're my family. I love them. And it's all comes from love. And actually, a lot of the things that happened during my mum's various levels of stages of getting better, there were lots of different levels of communications that I was learning that are now playing a big role in what I'm doing in business. It's very interesting that, you know, your life is very much plays out in your business as well. And I think you can't keep the two things separate. I feel I was always very much like, well, why are you taking it personally? It's like, because it is personal, because I care. And it does affect me. And, you know, I used to get this as in an agency side when I worked corporate. And, you know, if a client didn't want us or want us to support them, then I would take that very personally, because I took it as a bit of a slight in, you know, oh, they don't want to work with me because they don't like me. And I know that's a childhood wound. I know.
One of the things that I'm learning about that is
Yeah.
having equanimity. I can never say the word equanimity, whatever it is, where, you know, we are so affected by compliments or rejection that if someone compliments us, it's like, woohoo, we go up and we vibe in. It's like amazing. That person thinks I'm just like this, you know, I'm shit hot. And then something will go the other way and boom. And we feel the pain worse. It's like the stock market, right? The stock market will always overreact to bad news, worse than good news. Good news is like, oh, okay, tick, 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 but I'm still going up, I'm vibing. And then one piece of little bit of bad news and it's boom, crash. One of the biggest awakening realizations, and this is what I'm trying to embody massively, and this is part of my spiritual ascension, this is the path to enlightenment, is when whatever happens, my energy isn't affected. And this is why energy is everything. This is why we're learning to master our own energy. And this is what wealth is. Wealth is a vibration. It's about mastering your wealth so that you can remain magnetic and unaffected. Doesn't mean you don't care about either side, because you are in love. You're creating your business from a place of love. Your love is your birth, is your baby. We're not here, and this is for men and women as well. We're all creative beings. We have 50% feminine, 50% masculine, so that we can create in our life, not just to have babies. Yes, we're giving sex and genitals so that we can have a baby and procreate. But fundamentally, as human beings, we are creative beings, and we need to birth that part of us, but then be able to be in a state of equanimity, I think that's the word, so that we are managing that energy and being the observer and learning the lessons. And I really believe, and I said this when we were chatting last week, Sarah, right? Like, life is not happening to you.
Yeah.
Out of that victim mentality, yes, we have a story. We all have a shameless story. Let's be honest. We all have a shameless story. Some of us are more open to sharing it, and that is completely fine. There's never any pressure to share what you're not comfortable with. But fundamentally, we all have a story. We all have a past, and it's all about seeing that life is happening for you. So that you can see the lessons, so that you can choose how to show up in that moment, in this moment today. And then really every time you're showing up for yourself, and I was thinking showing up for yourself first, even though there's another party, it is you going, I'm showing up for myself so that I can be in this moment fully present and trusting the universe completely, and kind of navigate that energy and that energetic movement. And constantly, as you're doing this, you're constantly upgrading. You're constantly changing your DNA. And this is
and I think the more you're showing up, you're showing up in a growth mindset, as they call it.
Expansion.
The more you're modeling that to our younger generations, you're also modeling it to your own inner child. And I think that's where the stories reside. They begin when you're children. And that's why we're both so passionate about being there for our kids, because we want the next generation to not, you know, we want to fast track them through the stuff that we dealt with. Of course, that's what every parent wants. They don't want them to make mistakes, but ultimately,
so many people were telling me to stay in my marriage, to get therapy, to fix myself for the children.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. How is that helping the children if you're...
I have demonstrated very clearly to my children, Harry and Rose, that you do not have to stay in a situation that is making you unhappy. Fast forward, it's been 8 months, really, like, I kind of like left technically in November in a situational separation at the property. And, my journey through this has been so challenging due to some of those things that people would say, it's like, and I could hear it, I'm not deaf to it. I'm not immune to other people's comments. But again, it's balancing my energy. It's coming back to that place of balance and knowing and trusting. And 8 months on, my kids are thriving. They are so happy. They really understand mummy's place in the world and their place, and they call my place home, and they call daddy's place home, and they love. And Harry says to me this morning, as I was driving him to school, he said, "Mummy, I'm back with you on Wednesday." They're getting into a routine. I'm like, yeah, and we've got jungleroo. It's amazing how you can stay stuck in a situation that isn't right for those children, because if you are not happy, you are showing them to stay somewhere that is really, really unhappy, and not, you're masking it with wine at 5 o'clock. You're going to bed at 8. Guess what now? I don't drink, but I go to bed at 11, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to go to sleep now because I need to get my Z's in. But I have so much energy. People say, we see you going out for a run, you're like Tigger. I'm like, yeah, I know it's annoying to see that person with energy. They don't see all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, because I do have energy, because I am really prioritizing what I need to prioritize, so that, hopefully in another 6 months' time, I'll look back and I'll go, oh my God, I'm living my dream life. Because it's not the dream quite yet. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Let's not shame myself into the illusion that my life is a dream right now. It's like freaking treading mud still.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I just wonder, actually, as you're speaking, the question I always ask clients, people that come on the show, is, what is the worst thing you could possibly read about yourself? Like, if it was to go on the front page of a newspaper, like that in itself, if you kind of work back from, like, what could shame you?
That Emma's a fraud.
Yeah,
You feel like a fraud because you're not, I've been telling people for a really long time about the wealth and the magnetism on the money side, because I was so conditioned. Actually, even though I was wealth coaching, that money is wealth. And now I'm like, it's not about the money, but it is gonna come. And I know that I'm in a pivotal stage right now where I'm actually investing in myself. I'm investing in my situation. I'm investing in learning to be a Swedish masseuse. I'm investing in bricks and mortar to put myself into a place. I'm massively in investment mode in all aspects of my life.
Yeah.
And therefore, I've taken a big step back from one-to-one client work, from the work that I was doing before, from all of these things that were paying for me to be in masterminds and go on retreats and I've not been on a holiday. I did go to a really beautiful retreat this year, but it cost me £1,000 for 4 days to go on a life-changing retreat, because I found someone that was on my wavelength. This is a person that is Stephen Bartlett's girlfriend, who does things freaking differently. And I was like, oh my goodness, people like that exist. Yes, thank you. That don't charge literally £10,000 to go and sit and be told that you're not good enough. I'm going off on one again, aren't I? You need to tell me if I'm going off on one.
No, I love
about this.
No, I love
a lot of this stuff over the last, I've got a lifetime of trauma, but a lot of this stuff over the last 4 years, as I've been in these circles, has traumatized me.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, because I felt not good enough. Compound that by a marriage that didn't make me feel good enough. Compound that with families and friends telling me, if you leave, you're going to damage your children. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm literally trying to take these layers off, but you're trying to add them back on. And then you end up in solitude. And that's where I am at that moment. I'm in Braunton, in a place where no one can really get to me. And I've taken back the power, where I'm not working really with anybody, because I don't want anybody to come in and influence me. I'm really nervous about people. I'm not trusting very much the 3D world, and I'm fully trusting my intuition, my gut, my heart, my soul.
And I feel like if that's how you've been, if those are the steps that you've been taking and you've been following that gut instinct, then of course I understand that the worst headline you could possibly read about yourself is that you're a fraud, because we've been taught to not follow our intuition, to not listen to that inner knowing, to not deviate the path off the path of, you know, the conditioning that we've, you know, we were indoctrinated at school, you know, that's how they do it, you know. And you know, my kids are at school, and I'm so pleasantly surprised with the education system. It is changing, it is shifting. And you know, we're seeing those shifts and changes in business as well. You're changing the wealth business. I'm trying to change the, you know, awareness, PR, visibility, media business. And I think, you know, this is what is happening. The structure is shifting and changing. People kind of like a bit of that framework, but they want that realistic, they want people following the magic. They want, you know, why do you think we're all caught up in Harry Potter and all of the magic that's on the TV? There's so much of that magic out there, and I think people are desperate for it because the magic brings connection, it brings possibility, it brings change. And you know, it's so interesting that you're probably the third person that said I wouldn't want to be seen as a fraud, but I would say that those times of witch burning and pointing fingers at the crazy lady who doesn't, you know, who does something slightly differently, I think they're over.
Oh, I feel weird every day of my life right now. I realized that I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't to fit in to.
So boring, isn't it?
It is really boring.
Boring.
I feel like I'm a total misfit, and I think that's why I've always felt really out of place. And I've never felt more connected, even though I'm living a completely new life. I'm creating a new circle of friends, which I feel like is part of my soul group, my star family. I've never felt more connected to people that I've literally probably only just met recently, and people don't really get it. And I'm like, I feel like I've known them beyond my life, and I know that this is part of the journey. And what I've realized is that I'm not trying to change the wealth industry.
No.
They can do what they want to do. I'm actually just trying to stay in my lane and do my life's vision and mission. And what I'm here to do is to activate people to do what they came here to do without stressing the nuts about what anyone else is doing, to really realize what their purpose is. Life. And my purpose is just to help people to wake up. Right? To help them to realize what they came here to do and to find a path, be it through their life strategy, through, you know, understanding what they want to experience in their amazing life, whether it's through their financial strategy of looking at their money, time, and energy and making the most of it, right? Investing it into things that they care, spending it on things that really value, and then, you know, saving it towards the things that they really want to experience. That is what a financial plan is all about. And then the business, the launching of those impact ventures that's going to fully align with soul. That is what I do. And then my other healing bit is going to help people to heal and be in their beingness, because that's the doing part, right? The doing part, the 8-step framework that I bang on about all the time, is helping people to activate themselves and start creating that strategy and get into the infinite flow of creation, because we're never done. And then healing along the way, healing those wounds, getting out your own way through Reiki, through massage, through talk therapy, and realizing that we can be with our body and it's safe to be in my own skin.
Yeah.
Because when you do the being, when you're in your being and then you're doing from a place of heart and soul, you have wealth. It flows in. You attract. You're coming from a place of attraction, not trying, not pushing. If you're ever in a push energy with anyone, and this goes across all aspects of your life, right? And that's why people come to me about money, but we end up doing relationship coaching because they're falling out with their husband because of money. But actually, it's a deep inner place of not readiness, and we end up looking at the root cause of all of it, which is your sense of self. And we end up, it feels like I'm relationship coaching in the end. And I am. It's because I am. It's because it's relationships. It's all about relationships to your money, to time, to energy, to yourself, to your wealth. And it's transformative when you can really unpick all of that. And how do I know? Because I am doing it for myself, literally over and over again, peeling that layer off, and it is painful. But then when you go through it, you see synchronicities.
Yes,
It's
I love
deja
that.
vu. It's not deja. It's like it's the universe sending you a really big sign that you're either on track or you're not on track. It's like communication. It's amazing when you start to notice synchronicities.
Love it. And you know, that's again another sacred mirror that's just arrived. You talk about it from the wealth side of things. And I guess my side is helping people to understand who they truly are, you know, and how they want to show up in the world. And a lot of that is down to unraveling these stories that hold us back, these shame stories that have either kept us in martyrdom. And like there's a big, you know, the terminology vulnerability and Brené Brown and all, you know, I love her work. And it's really interesting because she is bringing heart and soul into academia through this conversation. And I feel like we're also in that kind of that vibration of we're trying to bring heart and soul back into our business situations. And you know, to do that, you have to water your own garden first. You know, you have to tend
Bringing heart and soul back into ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have a heart that beats half the time. You know, when we do
100%.
business and we attack other people and we
Yes.
sue them and we go, oh, you know, get on our high horse and start. I
Don't
can't
copy
cope
me.
with it
Don't copy
because
me. That's my idea.
but it's like it's bringing the heart and soul back into yourself for fully and embodying yourself because that will flow into your business.
Yeah.
You
And
can't.
there's room for everyone, right? That's the other adage, is that there's this thing that we've been told that there's not enough for everybody, but there's enough room for all of us, and everybody's perception of
The universe is infinite.
Yeah, 100%.
It flows. And we have seen this in the 3D where we keep printing money. We keep printing money, quantitative easing in 2000, you know, when the market crashed and they started to manipulate the market and they started printing money and the stock market just goes up and up and up. And you're like, how can it keep going up and up and up? Okay, there's wealth out there. There's an infinite supply of wealth and abundance and energy. We are not in competition. We're here to co-create. Well, we are genuine. If you want to go into it, we are all one. That's fundamentally, we come from the same place. We are all oneness, really. We are all connected at a deep spiritual level.
This is why we're so good together, because you're just saying stuff I'm thinking. It's like, okay.
Like you're thinking it as I'll speak it. But that's the vibration.
That's it, isn't it? I think it's just been an absolute pleasure to chat to you today. And if you want to find Emma, how can they find you?
Oh, you know, I'm on Instagram at the Wealth Rebel. I love being on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, Emma Wright. I'll send you my links, my love. I do have a little quizzy that people can do to see how wealthy they are. Because by the way, it's not about money. You know, it's about wealth, energy, abundance, lifestyle, time, health, all of the things that we forget about. So I can drop a little quizzy in as well so they can do a little quiz.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much to the listeners for sticking with us, and Thank you, Emma, for coming on. I absolutely adore our conversations, because I can just feel the work that you're doing just through sharing these stories. I think will be helping other people to make different choices with their lives. So thank you again. And tune in for another episode of Shameless Stories. I'm your host, Sarah Lloyd, and I will be back soon.